Hey guys, Deathletter Magic here, and I've got some news coming from the Never Work for Wizards of the Coast department. So there's a new supplemental going out for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition called Candlekeep Mysteries. It's a bunch of little one-off mini campaigns that you can run. And somebody named Graham Barber, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, I guess he's better known as Panzer Lion, wrote a section in it. It's supposed to be some UNT. We got the bad ones and we got the good ones, and they're both trying to do opposite things involving summoning a serpent god. And they're both trying to operate within a village of amphibians that just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, I guess. But they're kind of trying to keep it on the down low. I gotta say that overall setup sounds really similar to my Gamma World campaign, actually, where you're all kind of stuck in one city and trying to, negotiate with the natives and figure out what's going on. So Barber pitched the idea. They were like, that sounds cool. He wrote it. They had some minor modifications. Some drafts were passed back and forth, and then he didn't hear from Wizards for a couple months. And then all of a sudden, they're just like, oh yeah, it's going out to print. Can you do interviews and crap? Hyping it up? Preferably for free because we're already paying you and we never pay anybody for marketing? Okay, that's not exactly true, but I mean, come on, we've all heard stories. It's basically the card spoilers for MTG where they just send it to somebody. They're like, here, send this out to your 500,000 fans for free marketing because, I don't know, it's an honor or something. So I guess the author starts answering questions saying, oh yeah, it's going to do this and you can play as this person, and none of it's true. Holy crap, did they change the story without his permission? Which, I mean, I guess depending upon what the contract said, but the dude's pissed, and basically he wants his name taken off of it. He's like, this is so changed and it's so offensive to my actual original ideas and accuracy to even D&D lore that he doesn't want anything to do with it. And take a guess if the changes they made were them SJWing it up and making some bullshit political statement. Why, yes, that is what they did. But they didn't just throw darts at a board and say, okay, everybody it hits, they're now gay. Or at least he's not saying that that's what they did. I fully expect that that's what they did. Amongst some of the complaints are the UNT are now universally evil for evil's sake. They're one-dimensional dumb villains, which is not what he wrote. He wrote two factions, one good, one bad. The amphibians, called the Gripply, had their culture completely stripped out. They have absolutely zero culture. He says colonial language and imagery, because of course, colonialism is bad. Yeah, we know that. The British are bad. Great. They're only one group of white people, Wizards of the Coast. You know what other cultures in Europe and Asia did? And Africa and South America? And most Native Americans, so in other words, all of human history? They just said, oh, we want what they have. We're going to invade them, kill everybody, and take their stuff. At least the British were one tiny step above just doing that old medieval crap. At least they pretended to be friends and kind of had business relationships, even though it was all abusive lies and racism. But anyway, we gotta put it in a D&D book. We gotta do a British allegory because, ooh, it's so bad. Colonialism, ooh, the Gripply are such dumb natives with no culture, and who cares? So he said now in the story, they went from an interesting, unique people with their own culture, and they were important, and the UNT were at least trying to respect them, and they had, their own utilitarian and obvious culture and technology. Well, now they're just primitives who, quote, primitively decorate their thatched huts with crab bits. So they just took the whole culture that he designed, the whole everything, and just took a giant dump on it. Now they're just the scary stereotype primitive crab bit people. He said even just them being described as primitive was pretty offensive to his original design of them. So Wizards dumbed them down so that they have a victim, and then everybody else invading the dumb tribal village is some elitist colonizer, and now all the UNT are evil, so how do you even play an evil campaign? Nobody likes that. Nobody does that. They never ran any of the changes by him. They just took months, rewrote it, and made it complete and utter cliche SJW trash. It's basically a social justice soap opera now. So they took a fantastic work by an author and just made it some preachy, dumb, unplayable shit. What else is new? Literally, like I said, to the point where he wants his name taken off of it because he didn't write something this deeply simplistic and offensive. Wow, another black eye. And remember, who's in charge of all central story work at Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons & Dragons? It's a pedophile. He wrote a disgusting book that I think might have been actually removed from Amazon at this point. Here, let me summarize the book he wrote. Relationships with girls significantly under 18, that's great. What a great thing that is. And I'm sure he denies, oh, it's just a book, it's just art, it's just a different take. No, you're a pedophile. Shut the fuck up. Oh, and to give him his job as head of story, they fired 2 women who had the job previously. So that's a train wreck. He already, in my opinion, from what I've seen from the evidence, caused 2 class action lawsuits involving stories and books, people suing them for like not getting paid, endless revisions, I don't know, harassment. They threw everything into those lawsuits. One has been settled. The other one I heard is still a nightmare. I would have settled shit. I would have dragged their name through the mud till the end of time if it was up to me. Somebody screws me over to that degree, doesn't pay me, it's on. It's war. It's over. I'm going to bury them. Their company's reputation, I won't stop dumping on it 10 years later. So I should say, I mean, this could be some sort of, I don't know, overreaction from Panzer, who knows. I could have sworn the name Panzer Lion has come up in some videos before on channels like Jeremy's. I could be wrong. I might be just thinking of some Minecraft YouTubers with the word lion in their name and somebody else with the word Panzer in their name. I don't know. It's just kind of vaguely ringing some bells for me, but his major beef is that any kind of deeper lore or like interesting backstory of what's now just, quote, the primitive frog folk has been completely removed, which that's like the authorship part. All the procedural, what's happening, okay, that's the story, but like, I mean, come on. It's a very short and sweet one-off thing that you could run in a weekend usually. I think even like the characters tend to be pre-made unless you want to make them yourself. So that you went here and you did this, and then these people are hiding something, and you know, that's like the really boring cliche dumb stuff, like it's got to be a short story, whatever, we're doing D&D stuff and making, you know, persuasion checks and whatever. I mean, yeah, okay, that's like the story, but then the real authorship part is like the history, the world, the culture, the people, like you've got to build that world, and that's the important part for people who are really into the story and not just, as they call them, groups of, quote, murder hobos, where they're like, go to spot A, B, and C and kill everything, because killing is the solution to everything in D&D, right? I've got to say, one of the past campaigns we did in my D&D group was basically the Murder Hobos Loot Goblins Incorporated. After about halfway through the campaign, it was just, everybody in this whole dungeon's probably evil. Let's just go level to level and kill everything. But I gotta say, it was a pre-made campaign from D&D, and the lore on this place was like non-existent. And it showed there just wasn't anything left. Now, compare that to the one before and the one after. It's like, okay, we got some story. We're in a city. Every time we talk to someone as like a potential guide, they're like, here's their entire backstory. I mean, we went to a city, we bought an inn, we operated it. We had to like watch who was coming in and out and manage expenses briefly. Then there was a ghost and we hired him as bartender. Then we had to like creatively wander around the city and like maybe this zone knows something or maybe somebody there knows something. And it was real interesting. It felt like you were really in the city, not just, oh, here's some generic city. I don't know. There's probably this and that. I don't know. I don't have any history on the city or anything. Who's the people who live here? I don't know. Generic city folk, you know, generic primitive frog folk. It's a primitive village. That's just boring generic filler crap, and that's basically what they did is they stripped out anything interesting from this. And the weird thing is, it's not like he way overwrote it, according to him. He said it was short and sweet, and they kept it short and sweet. They didn't over-shorten it, according to him. So it's not like he turned in a 40-page backstory, and they're just like, nobody's going to sit through this, and then deleted it all, according to him. But to me, knowing how Wizards of the Coast operates and knowing the ridiculous edits that they requested for some of the other works in the D&D world recently, they basically went from, yes, interesting, unique story with interesting, unique people, but let's make it about British colonialism, because white people, bad. I should say that in another Twitter thread, he claims that his Panzer cut, I love that, of the adventure is only 7,187 words. So I wrote an extremely short fanfic a long time ago. It was some sci-fi thing and for some dumb forum, and they were just like, oh, that's cool. It was, you know, solid 5 out of 10 work when I was a lot younger. I'm a lot better at writing nonfiction, like instructional stuff. 11,700 words. I threw it together in about 2 days. I've got to say, I mean, in average, like what, size 12 to 14-ish single space in Word, 7,000 words is still about 15 pages. So you start putting some art in. Okay, that's kind of long, but for a D&D campaign, it's really not. So you can't really say, oh, well, he went on too far and went too deep into the lore. That's 15 pages is nothing. And the D&D pages are a lot bigger, by the way, and the font's kind of small. So realistically, in the book, it could have been like 10 pages or less. Unfortunately, he didn't say what they trimmed it down to because I think he'd have to probably manually count the words one at a time. So the best summary, I love this. He says, my adventure, ancient gods stirring from their slumber, bring the ancient past to the modern day, imperiling the local Gripply village as factions of Yuan-Ti battle. And then their version, edited and developed by Wizards of the Coast. Primitive frog people need rescue by players. Yuan-Ti are evil because evil. Boy, if I developed all the culture for the frog folks, and then they're just like, ooh, they're primitives and they put crab shells on their houses, I'd be like, my God, did you just absolutely take a dump on half the story? He goes on to say, the worst part of this, the worst in all caps, is that I gave false impressions to interviewers leading up to the release of the adventure because I hadn't seen it and assumed that most of the story and conceptualization made it through the process because I hadn't heard anything otherwise. So like I alluded to earlier, he's telling people in interviews, oh yeah, you can do this and that, and the Gripply are really interesting, and they have such a complex culture. And then the people get it, and they're like, actually? Pretty much just a 1700 stereotype. Oh, he did get the final cut numbers. Okay, so his original is 7137 words, player stats included. If we remove all the dumb player stats and math crap, it's, believe it or not, 6969. Nice. And the released copy was 5686 words. So, I mean, okay, they shrunk it. And he says, yeah, they removed about 1,300 words to just dumb it down and call them primitive. Maybe they legitimately thought it was too long. To me, that doesn't sound too long. Percentage-wise, it doesn't sound too long, but I'd have to read it. And this might just sound like, oh, watch out, guys, there were some changes, I'm kind of mad. No, he goes off. There's like profanity-laced tweets. Like, he is pissed at Wizards of the Coast over this. And his tweets are getting like 1, 2, 3,000 likes and like retweets and stuff. Oh, this is a black eye for Wizards. Don't take an author's work and absolutely dump on it and then let them go do interviews to misrepresent it because you changed it so heavily without telling them because you knew they'd be pissed. Because that is ridiculous. Now that said, I mean, Panzerlion, like I said, I thought his name sounds awfully familiar. And his descriptors on Twitter indicate he is SJWAF. He/him has his pronouns in the bio. I think he's got the Greek and Namibian flags. There's some African flag in his bio as an emoji. Okay. And he describes himself as openly black. That's actually hilarious. And then his whole Twitter background is person of color gamer. Seems like one of those whiny victim complex types, but I don't know. His tweets are well written, so I have to assume that his work is well written. Wizards chopped it up. Maybe his work just went on and on and on, and they're just like, this is way too complex for a one-off story, and then they chopped it up and knew he'd be pissed, so they didn't tell him. Maybe he's freaking out over just he turned in bad work that was too long. Or maybe Wizards was like, no, we got to dumb this down and make it a colonial thing, which I think is the more realistic option here, because they absolutely do shit like that. Maybe they're both wrong. I mean, don't work for an SJW company and don't hire SJW writers. Real simple. And I don't want to bury the lead here. The real story at the end of this video that I want to point out is that Wizards finally hired a black contractor. And then this is how they treated them. Not too dissimilar from the last black contractor/intern they hired. Because boy, did that one go off. So anyway, on his website, he made a statement where he's telling people to just never ever write for Wizards of the Coast. Well, there's something I could agree with him on. So, yeah, this all turned into another disaster. Never worked for them. Their company's out of their damn mind. And they're going to ruin anything you do or make and probably underpay you in the process. There is a lunatic pedophile in charge of the story, and he's basically one giant legal liability for the company. Wizards of the Coast is just one giant train wreck, and everyone should stay away from them. Vendors, contractors, writers, artists, everybody. Don't go anywhere near this group of absolute maniacs out in Seattle. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next video.